Good morning. Welcome back to the FloTrack podcast. My name is Lincoln Shrike, joined today by Kevin Sully. It is, Friday, August 28th. Kevin, I turned 30 in 2 days. What advice can you give me about being in your 30s?
Wow. I did not know that. I have time
Yeah.
to get you a gift now. Man, best advice in your 30s, stop counting your age would be one, never
Okay.
do speed work if you want to walk for the next week. And my other advice would be don't buy a house, but you already ignored that
Already did
advice.
that.
So there you go.
Yes. As you know, the money has been pouring out of my wallet and of my bank account since moving in. And the other day, the air conditioning in his room stopped working. So drum up another $7,000 for a new air conditioner, and here we go.
Really? Can you finance that?
Yeah, we have a savings to not, but I'm sure you could, but I'm trying to avoid finance. We're so financed right now that I'm just trying to avoid it. I figure if I finance everything, I'm going to be financing my trips to the grocery store eventually. So trying not to, but
well,
so
I found that
yeah.
for a while I was like rooting that sometimes things are more expensive just because they would offer you the finance option.
Yeah.
There was that sweet spot where it was like on house stuff where it was like way too expensive but not expensive enough that you'd have a finance option. So they'd say, hey, this $4,000 is due when we start the work, and then the other $4,000 is due a day later when we finish the work. So good luck finding that money.
Yeah, that's fake financing. That's not real financing. Yeah, it's definitely financing can be good in the short term, obviously, but then you look at how much you're actually paying for something, and then it's like, oh, I'm paying way more than what I'm actually signing to pay for with interest. It's just a whole bunch of fun. Just getting a new house. It's a lot of things. I feel like I'm getting the full experience of getting to my 30s. 2 kids now. Just a boatload of money constantly flowing out. It's a joy, really.
You started having kids earlier than I did, so when I was in my 30s, I still did not have a child yet. So you're ahead of me. So you really don't need the advice. You're really cruising through life smoothly. Did you listen to the pod yesterday, and were you upset when Gordon said that we're not allowed to do any rankings podcast without him? Or were you honored?
I didn't get to the podcast yesterday. That makes sense. I know he holds those rankings near and dear to his heart. I try to press him on, his rankings. We had a memorable section about an Alabama runner 2 days ago. I know I'm just trying to poke holes in his game a little bit, because I know he spends a lot of times on those rankings. I mean, that's at least what you can find issue with certain teams or certain individuals, but know that he at least considered it for probably too much time. You can be confident that he, didn't just put a team or an individual at a place without thought. So I understand why we're not doing the ranking show today, just because he could be protecting himself, because it could devolve, if it was just me and you, to you and I just bashing him for putting a particular team in a particular way. So he's kind of protecting himself from that by including himself in all the rankings podcasts. So I understand.
So if you tuned in for the women's team ranking, the final one we had to do, that's going to be next week when Gordon can be here. I looked at the rankings. They're not the women's rankings. I wouldn't quibble with them. Usually when I have issues with his rankings, it's not preseason stuff. It's like 5 or 6 weeks into the season when I don't know.
You don't have to worry
someone's and there's no season. It's like it's a non-issue this time around. So the ranking seemed a bit straightforward. I might quibble with his order of a couple teams in the top 5, but in general, it's hard to argue with him. Just like with NAU BYU, do you have a pick in that hypothetical matchup for the men?
I mean, I feel like I'm always compelled to lean towards NAU. Not that BYU's win was a fluke, but when you look at to me, if you would have looked at the BYU team for 2020, you had a few question marks. Connor Mance would be coming back from an injury. I assume he's fully recovered from that. And then you had Casey Klinger coming back from a Mormon mission, and they lose a couple guys at least. I think they lose Heslington and I don't know, a couple other guys that were
Carney.
key pieces of the team.
See, this is why you got to listen. You got to listen to the show that you're on, Lincoln. You got to listen the day before because we broke this down. Yeah, they lose Heslington. They lose Heslington and Carney, but they would come back with Shumway and Klinger. Essentially, those two could fill them in. So yeah,
the ceiling seems higher for an NAU team that's got the top recruit in the country. Lost Jordy Beamish, but Beamish kind of famously underperformed at NCAA's the last few years relative to how good he was on the track. So, you just felt like another year experience with the freshman of NAU, and you bring back Grijalva. I think the ceiling's higher for that team. It's going to be fascinating to see when these teams do resume normal competition, ostensibly in 2021. Who's left and who's moved on. It's kind of something that's not really being discussed. Is with this outdoor season, we saw a lot of people just say, no, I'm going to go professional. I'm not going to come back for just an outdoor track season. Well, now it's going to be more than that. Obviously, you're going to have an entire cross country season. So are we going to see people just say, I need to graduate, go pro, do what I typically would do if all things were normal? Or are they going to say, I'm going to come back? Because I imagine it's going to be more of the former. A lot of people will graduate and say it's not worth one season just to come back. So how will that change the teams that we're talking about now is a question left to be answered.
Well, and the longer we go without competition, the more a pro contract would be offered purely on potential and less on results. Mm-hmm. You could offer a pro contract to Jordy Beamish or to Alicia Monsian or to Nia Akins because we've seen them do that. We've seen them win NCAA championships or run fast times or become All-American multiple times. The longer we go without actual competition, if they're still going to give out pro contracts, it's going to be a situation. Well, yeah, they only ran 13:40, but that was several years ago, and their Strava updates have been great, and it looks like their training is going good, and they hopped in one race and they got a PR. Yeah. It's going to get harder and harder for, I think, people who are signing professional athletes to have any idea about who the best athletes are to pick, assuming we go without an indoor season as well too, and maybe part of an outdoor season.
Absolutely. So much. I don't know the ins and outs of contracts and how they're determined separate from just like the athletes that are obviously the best. But winning NCAA titles, where you finish there is certainly a great barometer of what kind of contract you're going to get. I feel like particularly for the distance athletes, just, knowing that maybe your PRs aren't yet competitive with some of the other athletes or some of the professional athletes, 5,000, 10,000. But if you're winning NCAAs, it's clear that, you can be on a track to being a competitive international athlete at some point in your career. So now without that, yeah, it's strange. And as a transition into what we're going to talk about today, previewing the Sunset Tour, you do have some of the names we mentioned. Connor Mance, 10,000. Obviously, he would never run an August 10,000 in the middle of his NCAA career if it wasn't for the current pandemic, wiping out the cross country season. So maybe some athletes are just saying, well, he is clearly trying to get an Olympic trials qualifier. But now in this time of no season, maybe athletes really trying to position themselves for being attractive for potential pro contract. Instead of just kind of, when are we going to resume competition? No, I'm going to try to compete and make myself a viable target going into an Olympic year.
Yeah. One more point on that before we delve fully into Sunset Tour is what percentage of the pro contracts this year were given out by On so far?
Yeah. It seems like it looks like 60%, right? They gave out a lot.
Yeah. I'm assuming they're not going to do the same thing next year. Every year, I don't think they're going to sign 7 athletes.
Yeah.
8 athletes. I don't think that's going to be what they do every year. Ergo, next year there's going to be fewer contracts available because if you take out On and if you take out Nia Akins' Brooks contract, there's not a lot of money right now flowing to these new runners. So you're right. This would be one of the few opportunities for these athletes. And everybody's been disrupted by this. Every athlete has been disrupted by this, but I think the college to pro athletes have probably been disrupted more because their whole focus was on indoors and outdoors, depending on what their eligibility is left. There wasn't really many scenarios where they would be competing in late August in a U.S. meet. Even if the best possible circumstances happened, they'd have been racing a whole bunch and they would have ended up at the Olympics somehow. But most of these college athletes, it probably would have ended in the trials and they would have been gearing up either, to focus on the next track season as a pro, or if they had cross country eligibility, maybe going back and running cross country. But these college athletes are in such a weird spot right now.
Oh yeah. 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 That's, I almost wonder if, as opposed to, small dual meets, and maybe that's what will unfold, but we talk about the athletes who are positioning themselves to go pro and trying to get to the trials. I mean, will they instead try to find pop-up meets as such? We'll see with the Sunset Tour live on FloTrack on Saturday, that they're going to try to run qualifiers and use this time, not just to have fun and run small cross-country meet, because in the end, like, what does that actually do for you? I mean, it's fun to do that, I guess, and it's better than nothing, but I wonder, I just seen Mance on the start list for Saturday night in a 10,000. I mean, a race that's, you're putting a lot into, you don't waste a 10,000 meter effort, right? This isn't qualifying for NCAA, the prelims or anything. This isn't going to Stanford Invite and running 28:50 just to get your prelim qualifier. This is a concerted effort with a purpose beyond just this weekend. So he's obviously trying to get his trials qualifier. So you wonder if you're going to see that with other athletes, maybe in the 1500, in the 8, in the 5K. Athletes that would normally be running cross country, are they going to be, trying to run a track season this fall?
Mm-hmm. What do you expect from Ches in his pro debut at the 10,000?
Well, he's always had a lot of potential. It felt like in the 10K. It's funny, writing the preview yesterday, his PRs from the 2014 NCAA 10,000 when he was a freshman in college. We've never seen him run a hard 10,000, which he never needed to do. And at Oregon, he won a lot, but his regular seasons were kind of boring typically until the end of his career, because he just would qualify, then win Pac-12 titles, and then win NCAA titles. And we try to do as least amount of work during the regular season as possible. He's someone that I would think could run 27:30 or faster if that's in the cards. I don't know if it will be. If you're going to try to run 27:30, you would think, well, you might as well try to run 27:22, the Olympic standard or whatever it is. So that said, I don't know, who's going to be able to go with him if it's like that. Probably no one. And if no one goes with him, we know Cheserek's not going to go after it. I mean, he just loves, even at a small meet that doesn't have a lot of significance outside of running fast, I think he just likes to win. So I don't think he's going to go solo and try to run the Olympic standard unless there's somebody to go with him. And I just don't see anyone else in the field that's capable of going that fast. So I would imagine this race ends up being at a tad under 28 minutes. That would be, to me, the most likely outcome. And he's well capable of that as a guy who's run low 13 minutes. And I just think, like I said, the field, a lot of Americans in there trying to get the U.S. Olympic trials standard of 28 flat. I imagine it'll go out in 14 minutes, and then it may dawdle, and then he'll close fast and win. We'll see, though. There's been guys who have beaten him before. Sam Atkins in there, who was pretty close to him last weekend. There's some guys that are pretty solid in this field that maybe don't pop off the start list like his name, but are like, oh, you look at their PRs, they're like, oh, they got a 28 low PR, or they're like Connor McMillan, who got 4th at USA's last year. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park for him by any means. But yeah, my point being, expectation is something in the high 27 minutes, and I would think he's going to win. But what do you expect in this race?
It just depends so much on the weather and if they have a pacer, and I'm not sure on either. I know that's a bit of a dodge, but there's just a limitation to how fast anybody can go when those two things aren't aligned very well. I mean, he ran 13:21. It was warm out there and there was no pacer, and he could have pushed it and he could have taken that thing on himself and gone full Chalimo and run a few seconds faster, but I don't think he was going to set the world on fire. What's that? Yeah, he's never done that, and it's not like he's going to go chep the guy and be like, "Yeah, I'm going to go I'm going to drop everybody by 3K and just keep going." That doesn't seem to be the way he likes to run races. I'm thinking a little bit faster than you, though. I think we'll see about a 27:35 because there are so many guys who can go under 28 minutes, and someone like Mance in there and the other BYU guys, I think they'll keep it a bit more honest. And if they go out even at 13:50, which doesn't seem to be too outrageous, then he can set himself up well with a good negative split. I guess he would need something, mid 13:30s then to get down to 27. So maybe a little bit quicker, but he looked good in that 13:21. I know it's hard to read too much into that, but that looked like him completely in control and him cruising in the same way he would win a 13:45 race in college. That's how he looked winning that 13:20 race.
Yeah. I have not checked the weather yet for undisclosed location, California, where the race is going to be held. I don't know if it's the same location well, actually, I don't even know. I assume it was Northern California that the meet was held last week, and maybe it'll be at the same spot, but I legitimately don't know where it was. And like you said, the weather was warmer last time out, and that's going to be tougher in the 10K than it would be obviously in the 5,000. So we'll hope for cooler temps to make it go fast. A pacer will be key. I don't know. In the entry sheet doesn't have one lined out, but I don't think you can necessarily just say, "Oh, Connor Mance is going to be in this, so he's going to start things cooking all by himself." I mean, maybe he is, but everyone's kind of looking to follow at the beginning, at the first half of a 10K. So there needs to be someone in there. I mean, maybe Ben Blankenship. I mean, I think he's the most hilarious entry in this. Like, what is Ben Blankenship doing in the 10,000? Just running it for fun, or is he thinking about jumping up from the 15 to the 10? I mean, what? Like,
I like it.
What
are your expectations?
Yeah.
I don't expect him to lead. So if you're counting on him to take the lead in this, he's a miler. I don't think he'll lead. No, the reason I think it'll be honest is because you have enough of a BYU contingent there who, as you said, they're not there just for fun to run a 10,000. They want to get this trials qualifier. So if you put them at the front of the pack, they're not going to go out in 13:30 or anything like completely crazy. But I think they'll keep it nice and metronomic at the front. Blankenship, he's the most interesting entrant. You said hilarious. I think he's definitely the most interesting entrant here. One of the U.S.'s best 1,500 meter runners. I mean, he made the world championship team last year in the 1,500. Maybe he's the only person who's out there just to run it, just to get a different type of effort in. I could see him dipping his toe in the water in the longer distances in the 5,000, but the 10,000 would be obviously a huge jump. Maybe Sifan Hassan just started a trend, and we're late to understanding it, that no one's going to run the 5,000 anymore. It's just going to be a 15:10 world.
Well, I mean, if there was an event, to skip or to avoid right now on the men's side, 5,000 would be a decent pick with Lamong, Chalimo, Woody Kincaid, and you're talking about all sub 13 guys. And obviously a U.S. Championships isn't going to go sub 13, but it's, he may think, well, if I'm ever going to have to move up as I get older, probably skip the 5,000 and go straight to the 10, simply because it's so stinking hard now to make the 5,000 team. I don't know if that's his thinking, or if he's just getting a really strong workout in a good field that's kind of similar to what you would see in a normal year at a Stanford Invite or a Peyton Jordan. Maybe not Peyton Jordan quality, but certainly a Stanford Invite quality 10K. So maybe it's just a workout for him. Who knows? I don't think Blankenship has done much racing so far this year. So
he ran one of the big friendlies a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, ran a 3,000.
Yeah.
So working on longer stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm interested in it. I think everybody who runs that 10 though, or the 5 is going to end up running the 10 next year at the trials.
Mhm.
Like I expect Chalimo to run the 10 and the 5.
That's
I don't know that. I don't have any information. It just to me it just makes sense. It's those
Oh
events
yeah.
end up being so similar. Why wouldn't you give yourself another
Yeah.
chance to qualify? I would
Yeah.
anticipate that obviously LeBlanc is going to do both, unless you are just supremely confident in your ability. But the 5,000 for the men, got to check the schedule again. Got to open up my tabs here, check the schedule. But 5,000 for the 5,000 for the men, I believe, comes first. So that might change things. That might change things. I guess if Chalimo makes it in the 5 and then he has no interest in doing it at the Olympics, then okay, whatever. But that's a little different. I mean, wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? I mean, you have so much time in between those two things. Yeah, the men's 5,000 is first. Day 1 is the prelim, and then day 4 is the final. And then you have a bunch of days off because it's not until day 9 is the 10,000 final. So you'd have 5 days off.
Yeah. I feel like you knew that, but you're just checking the schedule out of pure habit and enjoyment at this point.
In this weird year, it's not just the athletes that are rusty. I'm rusty too. And my greatest skill, knowing the schedule, I'm starting to doubt myself. I'm starting to have second thoughts where I shouldn't. I need to just go out and say definitively, hey, day 1, these are the events for Budapest 2023. This is the schedule. This is the schedule for Paris 2024. I know it, but I just need to believe that I know it. That's the key.
So a lot of people probably coming back and doing that 10,000 as a, just empty the holster type of event. Just everyone trying to either make 2 events or to maybe that's Blankenship's aim. Like I don't know when the 1,500 is in relation to the. Now I'm going to make you look for that in relation to the 10K, but maybe he says, "Oh, I run 27:59. Something happens in the 15. It's my last ditch effort. Probably my last shot in an Olympics on the track. I don't know. Maybe that's not his thinking, but saying I don't have a shot in the 5, or I can't run the 5 because I got the 1,500. So maybe I can do the 10 if I miss out. I don't know."
Interesting. So you're saying because the 1,500 overlaps that he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do the 15 and the 5. I mean, that's not. Yeah, that's not
crazy,
accurate. But that's a good.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No. If you wanted to do the 15-5 double, I'm not looking at the Olympics. I'm looking at the trials. But the 15 is in the second half of the meet with the 10, and the 5,000 is in the first half of the meet. And
Got it.
The 1,500 meter final is day 10, and the 10,000 final is it the same day? No. Hold on. Now I'm confused. Oh no. Now I've lost the thread. I can't even find the 10,000. The 10,000 disappeared. Sorry. You'd run the 10,000 and then you'd have Friday and Saturday off, and then you'd have it'd be 2 days rest. So that doesn't seem smart. You think you'd run the 5,000 the first half of the meet, and then you'd be good to go. Yeah.
So even Safan Hassan's like, oh, that's a little heavy of a schedule.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, Blankenship here is kind of, it's like when I said hilarious, it's kind of his attitude. If you've interviewed him before, there's always a certain tongue-in-cheek aspect to everything he talks about, at least in the media. So I kind of feel like that's somehow has to do with this approach. Like he's just kind of like whimsically entering this event. Like I'm sure it's just not saying he doesn't take his career seriously, but it's like we're not going to see Matthew Centrowitz in a 10K. We're not going to see Craig Ingalls in a 10K. And maybe that's, give credit where credit's due. I mean, that maybe they should be out here in August, cranking out a 10,000 to work on strength. But the long point here is I'm very excited to see what he does in this one. And I think he's got some strength. I feel like he maybe won club cross a few years ago. I don't know if my wires are getting crossed there, but he's not going to be completely out of his element here for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just the fact that he's that good in the 1500 is,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Pretty
you
good.
can
Yeah.
apply some of that. I mean, I know he's in the same group as Hassan Mead, who's one of the nation's best in the 5 and the 10. I'm sure he's doing
Yeah.
some work with him too.
Yeah. Should we talk about the women's 10,000 next?
You're running the show, man. You did the intro. You got the ball
Oh,
in
I
your
didn't know
hands
that.
here, James
I
Harden.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that when I was the distributor. Okay.
Well,
So the women's 10K.
you establish yourself as the main point person, and then you
Okay. Well,
carry it through the whole way.
I'm learning. I'm learning.
I
I'm
remember.
learning here. I didn't know if we cut to commercial. I'm not really familiar with. Back to you.
No,
Or
you own it.
we'll return
You own the
this
doc.
quick message. Okay. So women's 10,000.
Update here. Update.
Yeah.
Ben Blankenship did win the 2018 Club Cross Championships, so I think
Yes.
good spot there.
Can't
Good
remember.
job. Good job.
Can't remember when my bills are due, but you know that Ben Blankenship won Club Cross at some point. Great. Okay. Women's 10,000. Atsede Besa, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Knew the name was familiar. She won the Boston Marathon in 2016. She is entered here as probably the most high-profile name. That said, the Ethiopian has not done a lot since 2017. Appears that maybe she is on the downslope of her career at age 33. But an interesting entrant in this one. You also have former NCAA 10K champion Sharon Lokedi, former trials runner-up Natasha Rogers, Olivia Pratt, who's probably not a name a lot of people have heard of, but she beat Rogers in a 10K earlier this summer. And I'm slipping on the rest of the names as predictable, but or as predicted. But this one doesn't have the, I don't know, as big a names as the men's one, but I think we could see a pretty solid race amongst this field, which features a lot of names like you're kind of used to seeing on the like USA's like in the 5 through 10 spots of finishing order, right? It's not the top tier. It's not the Emily Infelds, the Molly Huddles or anything in a 10,000, but these are some solid runners for sure.
Yeah. And speaking of cross country, Natasha Rogers won a big cross country race earlier this year, and then she was on a bit of a roll early season, and then the year got disrupted. 32:25, I'm guessing, is going to be the target. That's that trials standard for them. Lokedi was cruising along last week, in that 5,000 before the final kick, and then she wasn't able to keep up. Perhaps with the 10,000, kicks less of an issue. I mean, she looked pretty good up until that point. Maybe she can turn in, a big performance. But this one is a toss up here because you want to pick someone like Bisa because they won the Boston Marathon, but unknown quantity on the track, especially since that was 4 years ago now. So yeah, anything could happen in this one. This one's wide open.
Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning towards Lokedi, just like you said, because she did look so strong for a big part of that 5,000 and still ran a solid 15-18 and beat a lot of good runners. But the 10,000 is such an infrequently run distance. And yeah, there's some names that this is a situation or a race that I don't know, probably couldn't take place any other time with just the names coming together. And Lokedi would be the like I said, the pick that I think makes the most sense. But a lot of these people, you just don't know what you're gonna necessarily get out of them. So I'll be excited to watch this one as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then in the 1,500, you get to see Dani Jones again. This will be back-to-back races for Jones. She was in the 5,000 last week in the Sunset Tour, but now dropping down to her. I would guess at this point. I know it's weird because she's won an NCAA title in the 5,000, but I still think of her more as a pure miler. Do you have that same mindset about her?
I don't know. I wouldn't say pure miler. I mean, I don't. We can debate the
pure was the wrong word. Preferred miler.
Yeah, preferred miler. I imagine this will be her distance at her primary target at the trials. She did run a PR en route to to a mile personal best earlier this season in Indiana, 4:05. That just, she's seemed better than, what her PR was, 4:07 for quite some time. She lowers it, and she could even go lower here. I'm going to be curious to see how this is paced. There's some good athletes in here, but really Dani Jones should win this against Kayla Edwards, Dom Scott. She's the primary name in this one based on her NCAA pedigree. And I know I assume she'll be hungry to come back because she had a pretty disappointing 5,000, 15:31. I mean, she fell off pretty much earlier than you would expect. I thought she would be competitive all the way to the end, and you wonder if maybe the heat got to her, or if it was just an overall bad race. So I would imagine she's eager to run a good one here. That said, we don't know what the pacing is going to be for, and it's tough to know. I mean, there's some other names in here. Rebecca Mara just ran 2:01, new PR in the 100, and she's actually a pretty sneaky good 1,500 runner, having run 4:08. So this is going to be a walk in the park by any means, but Jones is certainly the favorite.
I think Mara should be the favorite, actually, just based on what she's done. She's been racing a lot this season. Mm-hmm. Well, coming off what she did last year, she made the final in the 800 at the U.S. Championships, which was a big performance for her. And then this year, she ran that 2:01 last week, but she's also raced, a bunch in those big friendlies. She ran a 2:03. She ran 1,000 out there as well. She ran a 1,500. She's been racing quite frequently. She's created this mini season for herself and really built off of the momentum that she had gained in 2019. So I expect her to win this race. I expect her to smash that 4:08 personal best. Yeah.
Well, Jones
I'm buying Rebecca Mara's stock. I'm buying Rebecca Mara's stock.
Good for you. Jones has raced a number of times too, relative to what a normal 2020 season is for most people, which is like 1 or 2 races. I mean, she's had a number of efforts, and I just feel confident. I mean, coming off of that 4:05, so you would think in a mile that could be worth 4:03-ish for a 1,500. I don't know if that'll play out here, but if Jones is ready to PR in the 1,500, I don't think anyone is touching her. I think the only way she loses is if it ends up being a 4:07, 4:08 race. If it's a 4:05 or faster race, she should win. I'm buying Rebecca Mara's stock in the 800. I don't know as much in the 1,500. Just she doesn't have that same level of experience. I mean, this is you love when I say this. This is a loser leaves town type of a race, Kevin, and that doesn't make any sense in this scenario. But I really need Dani Jones to win.
We're just so desperate for competition that our friendship is going to end over this race. So we are putting a lot on it. No, I mean, Mara's in college. Mara was really good in the 1,500. She made the NCAA final in the 1,500 when she was running for Stanford. I mean, this is she was 6th in 2017. She's a solid runner. I think she was a little bit under the radar just based on when she pro and which event she was in, and no more. She's on everybody's radar because we're all buying the stock. The stock has been purchased. You're right. Dani Jones has run a couple times this year, but with Mara, it's just this season for Mara kind of reminds me a little bit of what Nikki Hiltz was doing last year. Now Nikki Hiltz was just like winning everything, so this is a little bit different. But Hiltz just got on that roll, and Hiltz wasn't going to like diamond leagues and running 3:58, but she was just racking up good race after good race after good race, and then parlayed that into a 3rd place finish at the U.S. Championships and eventually finals in Doha. Not exactly the same with Mara because she's not winning every single one of these races, but every single effort seems to be really good. So again, buying the stock here, and I'm willing to wager your air conditioner versus my air conditioner. We'll call it the air conditioner leaves town race here.
Well, Mara my 20-year-old air conditioner is about to leave town for sure.
Your new AC. I get your new AC.
Oh yeah. If you want to help me with half of it, we can put it on a timeshare if you want. Yeah, that's an interesting comparison. I feel like that's something, if I would have made that comparison, you would have made fun of. made fun of it because you're saying, it's not like she's winning all the time, but it's like the same. I understand what you're trying to get at. She has won some. I know, but it's more of like the model of like she's hitting singles as opposed to going for home runs. She's getting on base. She's got a high OBP right now. And when you're doing that, that puts you in position to win ball games, Kevin. And so she's in position here. She's ready to knock out that 408 PB. It's just, is Dani Jones ready to take that on? I don't know. The pacing is going to be interesting. Is this paced for a 406? That's the trials qualifier, 406 flat. So Jones already has that. So is she going to be as hungry? I'm trying to apply all the cliches of sports into this. But you have to think that's Mayra's target, right? Is the 406, trying to get the trials qualifier and maybe run both distances if possible at the trials, or, have the ability to choose. So if there is a pacer, which I think there is, that should be the mark to watch for.
So she lost, listen, she hasn't won everything, but her losses most recently to Coco in 1,000. She lost to Chanel Price in an 800. And then she lost to Corey McGee in an 800. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And she's beaten, and she was not too far behind in any of these races. I just think this will be the week when the world finally is welcome to Rebecca Mehra. Book it. I feel really confident. We might have to come back on Sunday morning and do a wrap-up pod of the Sunset Tour just to figure out who gets the air conditioning unit. So. Yeah.
Well, if I had known you were going to split it with me, I would have probably gone for the nice Series 18 model as opposed to the Series 14 model. Just trying to save a buck, but knowing we're going to be comparing it.
We're not splitting anything. I'm getting both because I'm going to win. I'm going to win this bet. Let's do. Do you want to do emails real quick? We haven't checked the old inbox in a while. All right, I got it open. You don't, so I'll read them. Here's one from Carl. Big on Luis Grijalva. He says he's just starting to reach his potential. Don't count him out as a potential winner for cross-country nationals if they run in early 2021. Who would be your pick, Lincoln, if there's like a February NCAA championship in cross?
Well, I'd be better positioned to answer that after Saturday. If Connor Mance runs 27:45, I'm going to easily pick him. But right now, I would still pick Mance. He's not afraid to, Grijalva, I'm not going to pick somebody like Grijalva who's coming off a 50-something finish. Yes, he was excellent in track, but there's a difference clearly in track versus cross country, and Mance just has that special knack for cross country. He's still going to be my pick regardless of where the race takes place and when it takes place. He's the top returner, and I like him. What about you?
Mance, yes, Mance would be my pick, but I think Grijalva would be the wild card, because is he the Grijalva from that one bad race, or is he the Grijalva from indoor season and all the previous cross country successes that he had? All right, Robert from Fort Lee, New Jersey. He says it's never too early for some 2021 Olympic trials talk. For the sake of this conversation, let's assume Shelby Houlihan only competes in the Tokyo Olympics 1500. For the top 3 U.S. women's 5,000 qualifiers, who are your 2 qualifiers after Krisha Schweizer? I'm curious if you'd be bullish on Shannon Roberry and the other veterans, or if you'll give the edge to the collegiate athletes that have turned professional over the last 3 years. Yeah. There's certainly a long list of potential candidates: Roberry, Cranny, Purrier, Monson, Conley, Hall, Schneider, Frazier, etc. Well, Robert, I'm going to pass this one to Lincoln here first.
I think to me, it's, yes, I know Cranny's run well, and Frazier's run well, even though she's coming off an injury. I think it's clear Shannon Roberry I kind of thought she was maybe going to be over the hill. That is absolutely not the case. She's had a stellar 2020 season. It's one-ups herself every time. She ran 14:45 in Monaco. That's incredible, given how long she's been around. And I think she had an injury last year, or a little bit ago too. And then I go Purrier. I think she made a team, she made a final, and then and then after that, she ran a 4:16 mile. I know she wasn't great at U.S. indoors, but who cares? I think when it matters, Purrier is going to be there, having that experience and being the American record holder in the mile. I think it's a pretty solid group right now. I know there's going to be some discussion about who's going to do it because there's been more women, it seems like, than ever running around 14:50 or faster. But I mean, if this version of Rowberry stays or even improves, I mean, she's nearing a lock to me to be on that team. And then Purrier just has the recent experience to suggest she's going to make it. And then, we got somebody in Krista Schweizer who's run 14:26. So I actually think this summer has made it easier to decide this team over any other team, on the track. I think this one is more clear, assuming Houlihan, maybe she'll run it, but if she's not going to run it at the Olympics, then I think the three have solidly separated themselves from the pack.
Oh, I think it just introduced more confusion. There's been more data points, but none of it has been conclusive because of what Rowberry's done, because of what Cranny did. We did the prediction show, and I don't even remember what I said because it was a while ago, and I don't know if that was before or after Rowberry ran what she did in Monaco, but I don't think I picked her. I think I went Schweizer, Purrier, and Cranny. I think I went with that one. I obviously think I agree. I think Schweizer's solid. The other person I would feel really confident in is Purrier, not just because she's already done it before, but because her 1,500 meter speed right now is really good. Didn't she run a 4 flat time trial just a couple weeks ago? Yeah. So she's looking good. What I talked about, and this is when you were on paternity leave and also doing odd jobs around Austin to save up for the air conditioner. Like there's this chaos scenario, this 5K apocalypse scenario that I laid out, which is essentially what could happen if a couple of the favorites perhaps get upset in the 1,500 in the beginning of the meet, and maybe the 10K favorites, one or two don't go, combined with what we already have in the 5K. And we're going to have a final where like 10 women potentially have the credentials to make the team and maybe even finish top 5 in the world, but they got to get there first. And Robert outlines just a bunch of those people as well too. But I mean, what happens if Huddle or Sisson don't make it in the 10,000? What happens if Shelby doesn't make it in the 1,500? What happens if Jenny Simpson doesn't make it in the 1,500? Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Sports. Yeah, that's why I think Savannah, yeah, right. Pass the ball to the man. Savannah Hassan has identified the new market inefficiency in track long distance running is avoiding the 5,000 because everybody gets pulled into it like a black hole. Whether you're a 10,000 meter runner or a 1,500 meter runner, you get sucked into the funnel of the 5,000, and it becomes an impossible thing to escape unless you're Krista Schweizer. There's going to be an all-star race for sure. And maybe I shouldn't say that it's automatic. I'm kind of assuming everything, you still, even in 2021, 10 years after she won the world title, you're still assuming, oh no, Jenny Simpson's a lock in the 1,500, which I think she is. But eventually there's going to come a day where she's no longer a lock in the 1,500. Shelby Houlihan's still a lock, but I don't know. I guess she could fall or be injured or something.
Or she could decide she wants to run the 5,000.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that's possible. We talked about that earlier this summer. It's just everybody's backup plan, and that makes it just an absolute cluster, of talented athletes desperate to make a team, and it could make for an interesting and fascinating. Well, definitely will be a fascinating race at the trials, but a highly charged emotional race where it's everybody's like, "This is my shot to make the Olympic team," and those are the best types of races, right? Those are that's what you want to see at the trials is if Molly Huddle doesn't make the 10K team for whatever reason, she's like, well, I'm in the 5,000. This is my last shot to make an Olympic team. And then you got young athletes coming in. This is my first shot to make an Olympic team. I mean, that's what you get in every event, but this one in particular has that really a lot of athletes at the end of their career, a lot of athletes at the beginning. It's going to be a fun one.
Is it fair to call it a loser leaves town race?
Yeah, well, definitely. There's going to be multiple losers leaving town.
Well, you can lose to one person and stay in town. You can lose to two people and stay in town, but you can't lose to three people, right?
You actually have to go stay in Springfield if you lose to three people. They kick you out of your hotel there in Eugene. I think it's definitely
let's keep going here.
Yeah.
Donnie writes in, am I the only person that thinks hurdles 7 and 8 are lower on the inside? Conspiracy theory. I like it, Lincoln. What do you think?
In the high hurdles or the in the forehand hurdles?
I'm guessing the forehand hurdles. I like it.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'd never thought about that in my life. You know, a lot of people after Warholm's 300-meter hurdles world best talked about how like there was like one set of hurdles short from what is normally run in the 300 hurdles, I guess, in the U.S. on the high school scene. Like, oh, there was only 7 hurdles. There should have been 8 or something like that. I don't know what the situation.
The placement is different. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's
okay.
yeah.
I'm not a hurdles truther, so I won't make that suggestion. I think the hurdles could be any height, and Carson Warholm's still going to win. So I don't care if the eyeball says that the hurdles are lower or higher. I assume they're all the same height.
Mm-hmm. Justin writes in, with all the marathons being canceled except for London's elite race and knowing Gordon's connection with Mike Smith, who coaches Rupp now, Gordon should convince Mike Smith to tell Rupp he should run London. I would love to see America's fastest marathoner face the likes of Kipchoge and Bekele.
Yeah, he doesn't. Rupp doesn't want that smoke. Doesn't want that smoke.
Is that it? Yeah.
No, I think he's focusing. He's focusing. He's focusing on his speed, which I don't know. When is Rupp? I'd love to see Rupp hop in this 10K on Saturday night. But Rupp's supposedly going to work on his 10K, 5K speed. I don't know when he's at that point going to race. Is he going to run road 10Ks, road 5K? Like, I don't know. But supposedly that's what he's doing. Yeah, it's disappointing not to see him there. I mean, this could be a Galen Rupp running 204 type of a race if he was ready to go. So really wanted to see him at this one. But, maybe he thought, am I going to find 204, 205 guys to run with if legitimately the pace up front is going to be 202 flat or something? What am I going to find my pocket of guys to run with? Maybe this isn't an ideal race for me to be in to have a full marathon effort. I think at his age, he's got to pick and choose his races a little bit more practically than maybe he did at the beginning of his marathon career 4 years ago.
Wait. When was the point in Galen's Rupp's career when he didn't choose his races carefully? I want to know that moment.
True. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I have something in my eye. You're correct. You got me there. He always did. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't.
Here's the
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, this is a race. The stage is set for Bekele and Kipchoge. I'm surprised they were able to get together this deep of a field. Now, when you see that deep of a field, you're okay. What's one more? Let's throw Rupp in there, and that would be awesome. But I don't think this was ever in his plans, so I'm not surprised that he's not there. But you're right. If he wants to run a PR, if he wants to get that 204 or whatever he is, where are the other opportunities going to come from?
Yeah.
This seems like a fast setup.
Again. Yeah, Chicago will come around again probably, but this was a American record type of a race for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to Jake. He says he ran track cross country Utah State. He said he likes the pod. He says, unlike most ex-distance runners from Utah schools not named BYU, I actually have a great appreciation and respect for BYU. And he said, I'm going to skim he says he has a respectful query. Why is it that every time you talk about BYU, you always qualify their success by talking about eligibility? Yes, most of them take 2 years to go off on a mission. They're older than their competitors, and that can give them an advantage. I get it. Most people never quite give them the credit they deserve because of that fact. However, I'm not sure people really understand and appreciate what happens on an LDS mission. There's almost no legit training at all. In my case, I was called to serve in a third world country, the Dominican Republic. I was malnourished, contracted malaria, and lost major weight due to that, but bounced back and gained a total of 25 pounds by the end of my mission. I ran only occasionally during the entire time I was there. This is pretty much standard for most LDS cross-country athletes while on their missions. I wonder if people really think that the LDS cross-country missionaries are training and getting stronger and faster for 2 years and then coming off mission primed and ready to attack. It took me 6 months to drop back to pre-mission race pace. I barely broke 18 minutes in my first 5K back. Think of a professional runner like Galen Rupp, for example. Let's say he stopped running cold turkey for 2 whole years and gained like 20, 30 pounds. If he tried to come back after that much time away, it would take him quite a bit. to get to his previous status. He says the time away should not be mentioned every time we talk about BYU's success. If anything, they deserve even more credit for somehow finding out how to lace up their spikes after that long away from the sport. I'm going to zoom ahead here. He says, He's commentary on Running with the Boys, which is good. I wish Gordon was here for this. This would be a good time to bring Gordon in. I watched Running with the Boys twice. I've watched everything you guys put out. You do a good job, but it doesn't take a sleuth to see the bias you have against BYU. They're disrespected in the sport. They didn't even get an invite to the press conference the night before NCAA's. Then turned around and thumped everyone, even your beloved Lumberjacks, by a lot. No disrespect to Mike Smith and his boys. I would be shocked if BYU repeats. NAU still has to be the favorite, but they literally rolled up every other program with runners who are barely even noteworthy runners before that meet. No one saw that coming. I wouldn't count them out. What ISO is doing at BYU is historic and epic. He's not gunning for a special to beat on his team, but it would sell. I just think the positive coverage on BYU needs to be more admirational, not so forced. Those are some legit boys at BYU. Love to see them get their respect. The only coverage is out there. A few interviews and one workout Wednesday to my knowledge. Thanks for doing those, by the way. You all keep it real. Thanks for hearing my rant. I love to hear you respond to my message if you get around to it. Once again, keep up the great work and covering the sport we all love. You want to chime in on this one, Lincoln?
Well, I'm glad that we now have Ed Eyestone's burner email account. That's good. Now we know we can have a direct line of communication to him. No, I don't ever. I would, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody can go back through the episodes and mine anything negative I would ever say about BYU. But I mean, I'm like I said, I'm about to turn 30. It's not like I could go join a cross country team and like have an advantage just because I'm older. I don't ever say these things, at least publicly, about BYU. I think you might hear Gordon say that some things in those regards. I think their biggest advantage is the fact that they get so many kids from like a few programs in Utah. They have like a pipeline almost in Utah. That's more of an advantage other than, maybe some of their athletes are 24, 25. They get like basically everyone from American Fork, which is like a distance running high school powerhouse in Utah. And, if you're a Mormon distance runner, which there seems to be quite a few, you're in all likelihood going to go to BYU if you're a top level athlete. I think that's their biggest advantage. Not some of the athletes are a little bit older than the other ones, because he's right. I mean, yeah, taking 2 years off, and we've heard it enough for me to believe it that yes, on the missions, you're probably not running a lot. You maybe are gaining weight. Hopefully you're not contracting malaria like Jake, but no, I don't think it's a tremendous advantage. And last year was a monument upset, if there can be, in cross country. It was very, very impressive. Now, that said, maybe why they don't get as much respect is because they hadn't won until this last year, right? I mean, they had been very, very good, but they hadn't won until this last year. So, I mean, when you look at it from the context of last year, we were looking at NAU possibly winning 4 straight, and everyone expected them to do that, and they gave us access. But I think we give BYU their proper respect, especially now after they won a title. I mean, they had never won before, so part of that was that maybe why they weren't giving their respect. But I in no way want to convey that they have a supposed advantage. I don't agree with that at all, and I hope I've never said that. If anything, I can blame that on old Gordon. That seems like something that he would say.
Well, he brings up the age thing before because he thinks it's interesting and noteworthy. And when you go back and you think, okay, well, they have the 2 mission years and then they have the redshirt year, and they're like, well, what year did they actually graduate high school? I think he brings up more as a noteworthy point as opposed to a specific reason for their success. In general, I think everybody needs to calm down about rules around collegiate cross country eligibility. With whether or not it's international athletes, whether or not it's people doing religious missions, whether or not it's the red shirt year, and then there's the other, sometimes there's an Olympic red shirt year. We've seen this situation crop up before. It's just going to be a little bit loose, right? And it's going to be people in their late teens through their mid 20s are competing for American colleges. And that's just, that's the sport. And the whole, I mean, as far as I know, any other school, if you want to go out on a religious mission, you could go out on a religious mission and you would have those years back if you wanted to do it. So I don't, I'm with you. I don't think it's a discernible advantage. If it is, other programs have different. If every program has certain things that work to their advantage, are they at altitude? Are they not? Do they have access to this pipeline or that pipeline? What's the recruiting budget? Right? I mean, everything is sort of on the table here. I think the problem is we try to. It's almost like it's close to a just free market sort of system, but we want to put all these rules and parameters around it. Well, almost like we want to treat it more like high school than like pro. And like, well, do they live in your district? You know, when it's like, no, let's just loosen it up a little bit and be fine with it. Now, when it comes to the bias thing, I'll push back on that. We did not decide who was at the NCAA press conference. Just to note, that was not a FloTrack decision. And obviously they should have had BYU there. We had them ranked. The women's team was in the top 3. The men's team were they second? Were they third? Somewhere. They were definitely one of the top 4 teams, but sometimes they pick different teams for different reasons. I went to Provo last year, shot the 2 workouts that he's talking about, one with the men, one with women. We did a rewatching episode with the championship coaches at Icestone for the men, and then for the women, I did one too. So, no, just because there's a special made on a team doesn't mean that organization, that media outlet, is then in the tank for that team. Especially when it comes to Lincoln and I, because how many trips you make to Flagstaff last year, Lincoln?
I've never been to Flagstaff.
Yeah. How involved were you in the production?
0%. So I didn't. Don't blame me. We're also going to get the entire NCAA is going to get to I supposedly have this advantage if a lot of athletes stick around through this pandemic, because there's going to be a lot of older athletes that are redshirting or not competing right now due to the pandemic. So a lot of teams are going to have 23 and 24-year-olds if this if they keep losing seasons of eligibility. So it's a moot point in my book, and it was long used as a reason to dismiss them, and I'm glad they're getting the credit they deserve now. Ed Icestone's a great coach, and I don't think there's no bias on my end. If anything, I'm tired of NAU because we did do a thing on them, and it's still a fascinating program. But I'm just kind of, I don't know. I was ready for a season for them to be co-giants next to each other and give them equal footing, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. And if you think this is just a cross-country debate, just remember Chris Wenke, quarterback, Florida State, won the Heisman when he was 28 years old. So it's not a problem that's an issue that's just brought up with regards to cross-country. Yeah, you're right. They needed to win. This is a competitive sport. It's about winning, and especially in cross country where a lot of the lead up does not matter at all unless you produce on that day. And I love the fact that the BYU is generating a lot of, to use your word here, smoke. And I like it. Like even when they weren't doing well, Rory Linklater, man, he knew good content. He was churning it out. He was churning out great quotes. And then now when they win, they're a confident bunch. I like it, and I appreciate the email from Jake. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. They, I'm hoping the rivalry with NAU and BYU can resume, and maybe we'll get a little dual meet or something at the end of the year, or maybe a track race. I'd love to see it.
Yeah. No, it's good. I mean, it's good that it's risen to that level, but for it to get to that level, they needed to actually win. And now that they've won, the game changes a bit. So, and I enjoyed my trip to Provo, by the way. I was really, when the season got canceled, I was bummed because I wanted to go back out there. Yeah.
I understand.
Dude,
you
haven't lived unless you've gone out to eat with Isaac Wood. You really haven't lived in this world. So
it's like, some people just know the food of a particular area. It's like traveling with a culinary expert, so I understand this and that. It'd be like going to Doha with me if you were a vegetarian. I'd know all the spots to hit up. I'd be like, that place has the best chickpeas. That place has the best pita bread. I mean, it's just that I understand that. I understand that desire. So There's a lot of things missing due to this pandemic, but the food restaurant selections are a big part of it.
Yeah. All right. Should we leave it there? We'll get to the other emails next week, I think.
I think we can leave it there for now. I've enjoyed my little run at being the host, even though I slipped up a couple times. But until Monday, I am Lincoln. He is Kevin, and we will see you next week.